Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have with us as guest Mr. Dessie Brown. Mr. Brown, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Cross.
Man, thanks for being here on the Black Male Impact, man. But before we get into the question, I'm just going to let the listeners know that Mr. Brown has traveled the world as a connector among the most known and respected figures in industries of media, sports, and politics and business, I should say. Mr. Brown, would you share with the listeners more about yourself before we get into the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in business for several years, and I'm known as a connector. My God-given gift is to be able to connect with people, with industries, with just across different media industries, sports, politics, and all. And so I've been blessed to work with notable figures such as Marseille Martin, producer, and actress, and then also radio legend Tom Joyner from the Tom Joyner Morning Show, as well as Super Bowl champions Martellus and Michael Bennett, and countless other clients as well. So been blessed to be in the industry quite some time.
Man, that's awesome. And to be amongst those elites, those who have become known by the world, what is that experience like working alongside those individuals?
Yeah, I always like to say that there's a Jay-Z lyric where he's talking about being courtside and saying that if you pan left to right, you'll see him next to Spike, basically saying that he's somewhere courtside next to Spike Lee. And so my experience is that I've been right off camera. So from flying all over the world on with Tom Joyner when I was his assistant, or being on set, or at a shoot with Marseille, or being at the Super Bowl with when Martellus is playing or something like that. So it's just a different kind of experience. I've been blessed to see quite a few things and just be either behind the scenes or right off camera, as you say.
Okay, man, that's awesome. I know those experiences can be great. Not everyone get to have those type of experience. And when you're in the company of those individuals who have been making an impact with others around the world based on what they do, the experience can be great.
Yeah,
So, but that leads me to the questions that I have today, as the
yeah.
focus will be on creating positive change. So, my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
Yeah, I think as a black man, especially being successful, I think we have a responsibility to just kind of, at the end of the day, watch what you're doing. And so a lot of times I'll say that one thing, for instance, is that it's important to push the elevator back down. A lot of the times, as you become successful, especially being a black man, you may be in rooms that there may not have been other people before you or many other black men before you. So it's important to represent yourself the right way, but also push the elevator back down, which means giving opportunities to that next generation or to that next brother that may need that help or that positive role model or positive reinforcement or whatever. So my goal has always been to not only just get in the room for myself, but to get in the room for my family or other people that are trying to get that opportunity as well, because you can't do anything by yourself.
Thanks for sharing that, because that's a great perspective to have when it comes to creating positive change. Send the elevator back down.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, that we cannot do what we want to do by ourselves. It doesn't matter how talented or how motivated we are, we're always going to need others around us. And you're right. Sometimes, as a black person, as a black male, we sometimes may be the only person in the room that representing ourselves. So it's always great to be that person who will open the door for others like ourselves. So somebody else can get the opportunity to
Mhm.
thrive, to great experience to even live the life that they want to live.
Yes.
So I really appreciate that perspective, because that's what we have to do, especially if we are thinking about moving forward, just to open the door for others. So I really appreciate that perspective as sending the elevator back down.
Yeah. And then another thing that's really important to me is that, as I said, I'm a junior, and so my father passed a few years ago, but he provided a great example for me. And then my goal has always been to keep the name going and to make sure that I'm being in the right places around the right people, because in the Bible it says that it's better to have a good name rather than riches. And so you want to make sure that if someone mentions Dessie, then for one, they may not know if they're talking about me or my dad, but I want to just make sure that it's always in a positive light. So if you mention me, or if someone mentions that they know me or they've done business with me, that it was always, for the most part, a positive experience.
Man, I really appreciate that too, because amongst us, they sometimes say we don't respect each other, we don't treat each other well. And to have that mindset along the journey, it always helps to break the cycle, because society want to tell us that we don't work well together, we don't open the door for each other. So
Mhm.
to approach life like that, we are dismantling the false narrative that we don't do business well together. So I really appreciate you sharing that, or share it as a reminder to us all that it's important as we go on our journey to be our brother's keeper, because that's actually what you're doing, being our brother's keeper. So we don't get to where we want to go by ourselves. We help each other along the way. So that
Yeah.
leads to my next question, as the focus is on us as Black men. What advice do you have for the men listening and how they can play a role in creating positive change?
Yeah, so positive change. If you just try to do, I'd say, one positive thing a day, or just something just within your community. Sometimes we try to do things that are so grand that we miss opportunities that are right there at home, as you say. So one thing that I try to do on a regular basis is go back and speak at, whether it's elementary schools or whether it's middle schools or high schools, on things even as simple as career day. Because what you realize is there aren't a lot of Black male leadership figures in some of these schools. And so my daughter's in the first grade. So I went to her career day this year, and I didn't see very many other Black fathers there for career day. And it's like, I may be the only Black father that some of these kids see. So if that's the case, then I need to make sure that I'm representing correctly. And not only that, with what I do, it's about exposure, right? So a lot of times in the communities, kids want to be ball players or music artists, or some kind of celebrity, or whatever the case may be. But I try to show that, yeah, you can work in those industries, but you don't necessarily have to be the talent. Like as opposed to only wanting to be LeBron, it's like, okay, well, what about being the owner of the team?
Yeah.
What about doing marketing for the team? What about coaching the team? There are a lot of different opportunities within basketball that don't require you to actually be a player on the court. And so you can still be passionate about basketball, but typically those careers outside of being a player last a lot longer. The GM of the Mavericks may be, 60 or 70 years old, still doing the same job, whereas the players usually can only play to, say, 35 or maybe 40 or something like that.
Man, that's a great perspective, and the kids, younger generation needs to hear that,
Mhm.
because as you mentioned, they may be thinking only a player, but as you said, they don't have to be the talent. They can be the owner. They can be someone that does marketing for the team, but sometimes they don't get that perspective on what's available within those space. To
Mhm.
have someone to share with them, someone who have been doing it, someone who have been working with athletes or celebrities, actors, producers,
Yeah.
give them that perspective that they need. And sometimes our younger generation, or even us,
Yeah.
not being exposed to all the opportunities that are available within those spaces, sometimes maybe say, man, I don't think I'll be able to work in those spaces because they don't know all that's available.
Uh-huh.
And I
Absolutely.
really, what you said about the creating positive change is to go back to our community, do the small things from the schools, share our expertise, our talents, and let the kids know that
Yeah.
here is someone who is representing themselves well. And
Yeah. And then another thing is like, for instance, being a connector here in Dallas, I was blessed to connect with this organization called Operation Turkey here locally. And it was just funny to realize that you can make an impact. Like most people think it takes a lot of money to make an impact, but sometimes it just takes some time. For if you have money to give, then give money. But if you don't have any money to give time when you can. And so, a few years back, I partnered with this organization called Operation Turkey, and they provide hot meals on Thanksgiving morning. And so, a lot of times, people will give away frozen turkeys for Thanksgiving. But if you really sit and think about it, if I were to give you a frozen turkey and you're less fortunate, it's not really a lot that you gonna be able to do with it because you have to cook it. You gonna have to get everything that goes with it. So although that's a nice gesture, it may not be the best for that situation. So on Thanksgiving morning every year, we give away 500 hot meals, and so they're ready to go. You know what I mean? And it doesn't cost me anything because Operation Turkey have already paid for it. They've cooked it, everything like that. The only thing I have to do is get the volunteers together, get a location, and then just put the plan together to serve the community. So that way, if it's cold, then we have drivers that can get the meals to the people, whether they're at the train station or the bus station or wherever they may be, if weather isn't permitting them to actually get to us. So there are ways that you can be impactful within your community, as I said, that don't cost a thing. My grandmother worked at a Salvation Army. My dad was on the school board. He also volunteered at the Salvation Army. He was also a pastor and also was on the board for the United Way. My mother worked at Commerce ISD and was a director of a Boys and Girls Club, and now she works in housing. So there are a lot of different ways, but as a Black man, I feel like we have a responsibility to not only push the elevator down, but also to give back to our community. And that's no matter where you go. You mentioned that you were from Jamaica, but now you're in Missouri. Of course, you may get back to Jamaica to give, but you're in Missouri now, so I'm sure you're trying to make an impact in Missouri. So wherever you land, you should try to make an impact in whatever community that is. Don't say, "Oh, I'm not from here, I can't do anything." Like, no, you can make an impact wherever you go.
man, that's a great reminder to us all that we have to do what we can where we are planted. And
Yeah,
if you are about service, you don't wait and say, when I get to that point that I'll give back or will help someone. You help if that's what you're about, you help wherever you are. And
yeah,
that's a great reminder. And I like how you said it, where it doesn't have to be money when we're talking about making an impact. It can be our time, it can be our service, and that can be beneficial and helpful to those who are receiving the service. And I also like the food, the hot meal, because giving someone something that they can't really use readily can
yeah.
sometimes defeat the purpose. So see the need and try to fulfill that need can be much more beneficial to the individuals receiving it. But always realize that we can make an impact by
Mhm.
providing our service, especially when we're thinking about positive change.
Yeah,
And
and another thing that you kind of mentioned that I always try to stress as well. You said where you are right now. I know a lot of people that try to say when I get this amount of money or when I get to this position, then I'll do this, and it's like, but what about the people that are falling by the wayside that you could have helped right now based on where you currently are? Like Say for instance, if you're in the giving winter coats to kids that need it, like who said you had to get 1,000 coats? If you can only get 10 coats, then that's 10 kids that needed those coats right now. Or who said you had to go and buy new coats? It could be gently used coats that you're giving away. But it's like it's something that we all can do right now. We don't have to wait until tomorrow. It's no perfect time to really do anything. So
That's true. We have to do what we can right now when we can do it, and don't think we have to. And it goes back to the money or the status or where you think you should be, but wherever we are, and that's something that I even stress a lot. We have to do the work where we're planted, and I believe if that's what you're about, really, it doesn't matter where you are or
you're
what
right.
status you have. If you
Hmm.
are about giving, if you're about helping, you can do it where you are, and it will show, because that's who you are by nature. If you wait until you get a position, you may not give because that's not who you haven't cultivated that type of mindset or heart
Yeah,
to really give back. So it's great when we're talking about creating positive change. Start where we are every time.
yeah.
So that leads to this question, and you may even touch on it a little bit, but how can we as Black men change the narrative? And the narrative can be any perspective from your perspective.
Yeah, well, as we say, there are a lot of images on TV and media that don't put us in the right light. And so my thing is just to be consistent. And another thing that I'm really big on is encouragement. A lot of times we feel that there can only be one in the room when that's not the case at all. A lot of other cultures figure out how to work together and collaborate on things. And I'm not saying to do business with just any and everybody. Obviously, you want to meet like-minded individuals, but I just say just try because if if people see us working together as Black men, then that can only lead to other collaborations and things like that. And not saying that we need to meet somebody today and do business with them tomorrow. No, just building a relationship and finding ways to pour into other people as well. If you get a new role that your company is hiring for the role that you just left, like tell somebody about it. Just don't keep
Yes,
it to yourself. You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes,
Or if
yes.
you find a new company that's coming to your city and the hiring manager, like share that with somebody. Don't just keep it all to yourself always.
That's really important because, again, that's part of what we have been conditioned to think, that
Mhm.
we don't work well together.
Yeah.
And when we're thinking about moving the needle forward, one of the things that has been coming up is collaboration. That we have to learn to collaborate with each other. But I like how you said it, that we don't have to do business with someone like that we meet today, and we want to work with someone who maybe share our values, share the same kind of what you would say now, want to make the same impact. So you have some affinity right there when we're thinking about creating change. So learn about what the person is about, and
Yeah.
also be willing to provide the opportunities to other individuals. If you know about it, don't keep it to ourselves. And that's one way to break the cycle. That's one way to change not only the perception that we have of each other, but it also helps others to have a different perception of us. Because once they see us working together, they will say, you know what? Oh, this is not how Black people or Black men are. They may have told us this, but when they see us working together, as you mentioned, it will change their perception of who we are, and also help them to want to do business with us, because now we are not doing or living our lives based on what society says.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important to realize is that relationships can be mutually beneficial. A lot of times we have to understand that we're both supposed to win in a situation as opposed to trying to take advantage of someone, right?
Yeah.
So I deal with a lot of brands. So if but you know it's important for me before doing business with the brand like whether that's American Airlines or Microsoft or Wingstop or State Farm, some of these different brands I've did projects for. It's important to understand what they need out of the situation, so then I can properly present the right things to them, right? So what happens a lot of times is people may come to me saying, "Hey, we're working on this event and we need a sponsor, and do you think they'd be interested?" And it's like, okay, you're telling me what you want, but what are you providing for them? So if you don't understand the return on investment that the company is looking for, then by all means, they're never going to do business with you or support your event, right? The other day we had an event this called Black Excellence Night, and so we partner with the Dallas Mavericks, and so the event is like a full day of different business panels and a job fair, and there's also networking. But everyone that buys a ticket to our event also is purchasing a ticket to the game as well. So a great event. So we just did it with the Mavericks, and we have one coming up with the San Antonio Spurs, and then another one in Phoenix with the Suns. And so it's important when you're talking to companies that you can show them what you're providing for them. So, like for instance, American Airlines was one of our sponsors, but they what they liked about the event was not only was it targeted for black business and black business people, but there was also a job fair element to it as well. And so they had some of their execs or hiring managers there that could meet new black talent that they may not have been familiar with. So that was very important. And then so there were just different. Then they had a vendor booth there as well. So there was a marketing aspect for American Airlines in there as well. So just understanding the different boxes that you need to check when doing business with some of these big companies, you find out a better way, and you can show that you're not only in it for self or just for your purpose, that it's a win-win situation for everyone involved.
And that's a great reminder because, again, doing business with others, they may have a perception. And if you only live out that perception, that's what they're going to believe. And as I mentioned earlier, that they may not want to do business with you again. But knowing that you're going in it not just for self and to help the individuals. And I think here is a book that I read, I don't remember the name, Win Friends and Influence People. One of the things that you have to think about is the win-win situation where you go in it to not just for yourself, but also ways in which you can help the other people
Yeah.
or company or just an individual to make sure they're coming out of that same situation with a win, just as yourself. And to change the narrative and to go forward, we need to have that in mind.
Yeah, and I love that you. I like to mention books when given the opportunity as well. And so one of the books that made a real impact on my life was The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. And what that book is about, it really talks about when selling, you're supposed to focus on, well, one, you want to learn about the person, but two, you want to focus on the benefits as opposed to the features. So if I'm having a conversation with someone and I'm trying to sell them a vehicle, I'm going to find out, okay, you are